All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, you should be done with most of your work, just as I would do in class. I'm going to go over the worksheet that you had, and I'll go on a step by step. I'm going to do, let's see, I sent you number 1 on paper. I'll do number 2. I'll do number 3, and I'll do number 6, right? So let's go ahead. Let's start with number 2. Now, number 2 says y is equal to 4 times x minus 2 squared. Now, I do recommend that you always start with the y-intercept because the y-intercept is the easier one to find. All I have to do is plug in 0 and solve. So if I look for the y-intercept, then again, all I have to do is when x is equal to 0. So I'm just going to plug in 0. So this will be y is equal to 4 times 0 minus 2 squared. So the y-intercept for this would be y is equal to 4 times 0 minus 2 is negative 2 squared. A negative number squared is always going to be positive, so this will be 4. Y is equal to 4 times 4, so my y-intercept will be 16. If I wanted to write it in a coordinate notation, then that will be 0,16. I want to find now the x-intercept, and this is the one that might cause you a little bit of trouble. What I want to go ahead and do is make the y equals to 0. So for my x-intercept, let's write when y is equal to 0. So let's go ahead. I'm going to substitute 0 for the y. Now the y is here, it's in the beginning, so then this will be 0 is equal to 4 times x minus 2 squared. So the question that I've gotten the most today is, Mr. Correa, I don't have a k at the end. What do I do? How do I begin? Well, if I don't have to move the k over, then that just means that I start by dividing. I had other ones ask me, well, I have a 0 on the left. If I divide by 4, what's gonna happen to that? Well, a 0 divided by anything, it's always gonna be 0. So in this case, I have 0 divided by 4. 0 is equal to 2x minus 2 squared. And then the second question that you guys have asked the most is, well, I take the square root of the right side and I take the square root of the left side, but what's the square root of 0? Well, the square root of 0 is 0. So this will just say 0 is equal to x minus 2. Now there is no positive or negative 0, so I don't have to write that here. I'll only have one answer. In this case, that would be moving the negative 2 to the other side, and I'll just get x is equal to positive 2. Or that my x-intercept is going to be 2, 0. All right, that'll be my answer for number 2. I have a y-intercept of 16, and I have an x-intercept of 2. Now, number 3 gave some of you some problems because you keep trying to go all the way, and sometimes you need to learn to stop at some point. Let's skip over the y-intercept. The y-intercept is pretty simple. I'm just going to plug in 0. I'm going to solve for it, and you're going to get some value. In this case, the y-intercept is it should be positive 1. So make sure that you get that as your y-intercept. Your y-intercept, so let's write this down. So this will be, number 3 is y is equal to x minus 2 squared squared minus 3. So your y-intercept, I'll give it to you, and just please check your work, is going to be 0, comma 1, because I'll plug in 0 here, negative 2 squared, positive 4 minus 3, 1. So that'll be it. Now, in order for me to find the x-intercept, again, I'm going to plug in 0. I guess I'll make the distinction here, x-intercept, and when y equals to 0. And I can't drill that enough. You have to know that your x-intercept just means that I'm going to substitute 0 for my y. So this will be 0 is equal to x minus 2 squared minus 3. So what I'm going to do here is I'll start from the beginning. And again, this is BOD, and I do have now a k outside. So the first thing I'm going to look at is my opposite. So this will be plus 3 plus 3. This will cancel. This will be 3 is equal to x minus 2 squared. Well, so far so good. I need to now take the square root of 3. So in order for me to cancel this power here, I need to do the opposite. I need to do the inverse operation, which is the square root. So I'll take the square root of both sides. This cancels, but what happens to the rest? Well, the square root of 3, there is no whole number that will give me an answer for that. Some of you left it as decimals. Some of you said no solution, but what I need to learn is that if I can't simplify the radical, I need to just leave it like that. So I'm going to leave that as the square root of 3. And on the other side, I'll just have x minus 2. Well, this is a positive or negative solution. This could give me a plus 1 point blah, 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 and a negative 1 point blah, 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 blah. So I need to make the distinction that this is plus or minus. Even though I didn't get rid of the square root, I'm just going to write plus or minus, because that means that whatever numbers come out of the square root of 3, one of my answers is going to be positive and one is negative. And right now when I finish, you're going to see that this is still going to give me 2 answers, because what I need to do now is I need to go ahead and grab this 2 and put it on the other side. And I did tell you to split this into 2 different equations so that you know that you're getting 2 answers. So then one of this will be negative square root of 3 is equal to x minus 2. And the other one is going to be the positive square root of 3 equals to x minus 2. I need to get rid of the 2. So I do opposites. And when I move it to the other side, it becomes positive. So it would be plus 2 plus 2. Now when I add plus 2 to this side, be very careful. This 2 can't mix. Right, so if I can't do anything, I'm just going to rewrite that as 2 minus the square root of 3 equals to x. And this, on the other hand, will be plus 2. This cancels, and this will be 2 plus the square root of 3 equals to x. And those will be my 2 solutions. So my 2 x-intercept will be x is equal to 2 minus the square root of 3. And x is equal to 2 plus the square root of 3. And if I were to actually put that on the calculator, you'll see that's going to be some decimal 3.3 something, and I believe the other one was 1.7 something. But for the sake of us just knowing what to do, you're going to leave it like that. You don't have to rewrite it. You don't have to write out the decimal roundup. Just leave it like that. And this will be, again, my x-intercept will be 2 minus the square root of 3 comma 0, and 2 plus the square root of 3 comma 0, right? And you just leave it like that. There's nothing you can do. For number 4, which is another one that you guys have been asking questions about, now I have y is equal to x minus 6 squared plus 6. Again, I'm going to skip the y-intercept. You're just going to plug it in. You're going to solve for it. I believe the answer for this one is 42. So the y-intercept here should be 42. And we'll skip right to the x-intercept. So again, I have an x-intercept, my y has to equal 0. So I'm going to put 0 is equal to, and this will be x minus 6 squared plus 6. My first step is always to move the k if I have it. So I'm going to move the constant to the other side. This will be minus, I don't know why minus 7, minus 6 minus 6. This here cancels. This gives me negative 6 is equal to, parentheses, x minus 6, all of that squared. We're getting to the point where I should know that if I have a squared here, I need to do the inverse, which is the opposite, which is the square root. I can stop here, and we've talked about this in class. If I put this inside of the calculator, it will give me an error. I cannot take the square root of a negative number. At this point in your mathematical careers, this will lead to a known solution problem. So this means that there are no real zeros, okay? And that's all that you answer. Whenever you have the square root of a negative number, it is non-real zeros. Please make that little note. Whenever there's a negative inside the radical. Right? If I have a negative inside of a square root, or of an even radical, if you would, then my answer will be no real zeros. Okay, so I'll give you those three. I sent you on remind number 1, so I hope that with those 4 you'll be able to finish up the ones that you haven't done yet.